Great. All right. The first company we have is Beyond Oil. In a world grappling with unprecedented challenges like the pandemic, inflation, and supply chain disruptions, we're here to focus on solutions. Beyond Oil presents a game changing solution for the global food service industry. Cooking oil shortages have hit fast food operations hard, impacting revenue and food prices. Beyond Oil's revolutionary patented formulation extends frying oil life by up to 1,000%, cutting costs, enhancing nutritional value, and reducing waste. This year, they signed commercial agreements with distributors covering over 22,000 restaurants and hotels in Canada, the US, and Israel, along with successful pilot programs. Joining us today is Robert Kiesman, Vice President of Beyond Oil. Robert will now share with you further Beyond Oil's disruptive innovation for the restaurant industry, as well as company developments, highlights, and growth strategy. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you, Carolyn. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. If we could move on to the next slide, I'll make some introductions on what our company is and what it does. So many of you watching have worked in restaurants, maybe you've worked in some industrial food factories. And you will know that after you fry food in oil for a day or 2 days or 3 days or more, the oil starts to get very dark, it gets very smelly, and it gets smoky, and it has to get dumped out every 2 or 3 or 4 days because it's got a lot of toxins built up with food that's being refried over and over. And so what happens in this case is the restaurant has to spend a lot of money buying oil and dumping oil. Over the last few days of frying, you're eating food that has a lot of toxins in it from that oil. And there's a lot of health problems that come from that. So what the team at Beyond Oil has done in Israel, they have created a powder that gets dumped into the oil at the end of every day. And what the powder does is it removes all of those toxins from the oil, so that not only is the oil healthier and the food healthier that you're eating, but the oil, instead of getting dumped out every 2 or 3 or 4 days, can continue on for 10 days or 15 days or sometimes 20 or 30 days. So what you have, if we can just go to the next slide, is we have a outcome where you have an ability to produce healthier food for the public. You're reducing waste, food waste. You're reducing water use for oil production. So you have some real environmental outcomes. But while you're doing all of those things, you have a very rare scenario where you're also saving the food industry and restaurant industry money because they're using so much less oil. So many people here are familiar with a lot of these ESG companies. I mean, you have, for example, electric cars. So electric cars are better for the environment because of the reduction in emissions, but the public has to spend a lot more money to get those cars. They're more expensive to produce. But here with Beyond Oil, you have a very rare case where you're actually saving money for industry while producing health and environmental outcomes for the public and for the consumers. So it's a very rare situation. Just to show you some examples of what this oil looks like before and after, here's one example of a restaurant in Israel. That's our CTO, Michal Werner. In her left hand is oil that's been fried without any treatment for a few days. And on her right hand is the same amount of frying days in the oil that's been treated with Beyond Oil. So you could see how much more clear it is. And I can tell you from experience, the bad smell is gone from the oil as well. And it's also thinner and there's less greasy film on the food when you fry with the Beyond Oil treated product. I want to speak for a minute, if I could, on the reduce waste aspect. A lot of companies claim to have environmental outcomes, and some of them are maybe a little bit fluffy or exaggerated, but in our case, all of our environmental outcomes are very measurable and very real. If you're extending oil life by 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, you're dumping less oil. So you have less food waste, which is a huge issue for a lot of these large industrial companies in the US and in Europe. But other things that aren't as well known or maybe as obvious It takes thousands of liters of fresh water to make 1 liter of food oil in many cases, from the time it's in the seeds, in the fields, until it's refined and processed. So if you're reducing oil consumption by 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, you have less water usage as well. And of course, the refining process, the transportation process is very carbon intensive. It needs a lot of electricity to do that. So what we're finding as we go out and start testing their product with a lot of these big US companies, they're equally as interested in our environmental outcomes as they are in saving themselves money, because they are under pressure from their shareholders and their boards and some of these NGOs to show some measurable reductions in their environmental footprint, whether it's water use, food waste, food dumping, or carbon emissions. So we can provide them with all of these measurable environmental outcomes, while at the same time saving them money on their oil, and they can go and proclaim to their customers legitimately that they are producing healthier food for them by us removing trans fats and other toxins from the oil. We can go to the next slide, please. Here's another shot of restaurant oil in Israel, a chain called Cafe there. The oil on the right is fried food oil over 3 days only. You can see how brown it is. But on the left is the same restaurant that fried oil with 9 days, for 9 days, so 3 times longer than the other oil with our product. And you can see how much cleaner and clearer it is. So this is a legitimate customer of ours. You can see the outcomes. Now, one thing I want to point out, as the oil fries for more and more days, it gets black and smoky. And one of the reasons it gets black and smoky is because plastic molecules, polymers, start forming in the oil as it refries the food. So when you go to a restaurant that's using black oil to fry your French fries or whatever you're eating there, you're eating plastic molecules. Beyond Oil removes those plastic molecules and other toxins from the oil. So we have a very legitimate health story here as well. On the cost savings, just briefly here on the left, we have a case study of a typical American high volume frying restaurant. If we extend their oil, just to demonstrate to you how much money we can save these companies, from 3 days to 21 days, they would have a net savings of $18,000 a year, and reducing their dumping by over 11,000 liters of oil a year. So these are very serious numbers. Next slide, please. We have a very tight share structure. So we're traded on the CSE and the OTC. We have 52 million shares out. Most of those shares, the vast majority, are held by the founders, the insiders. We have a very loyal and close base of shareholders in this company. It's highly unusual how tight the share structure is. Most of the investors at this time are long-termers with us. And a lot of them are, knowledgeable in the industry and wealthy, high net worth people who really believe that this company is going to transform the food industry. And we are working on that now. So that brings me to the last slide. If we could just slide over. Growing our distribution network. So our growth plan, we have announced some deals, one in Israel, one in America, and one in England, that we are now moving forward with in the restaurant industry, some of them with recognizable brands. So we are now penetrating the market in the US and in Israel, and soon to be in London. We are demonstrating our product with some of the largest industrial and fast food chain companies in the world right now as we speak. So we're going to have a nice pipeline of sales, and a lot of the news releases that we will be able to put out over the next year and 2 years and beyond are going to be with recognizable brands that the public and our shareholders and potential investors know about because they're eating there. And so we are very confident with our business model. Our product is quite high margin. We have a relatively low burn and a tight share structure, and a company that has a rare outcomes of environment, saving money, and health. We have a 3-pronged solution that we think is quite a sexy story, actually, and a unique story in the Canadian capital markets. So we'll be looking for funding over the coming months and years as we increase our capacity for production in Israel, And we will be focusing much more than we have been in the last year as we start announcing these commercial deals in getting the message out on our stock with IR and also on our product with PR. So we invite you to check out our company. Our website's beyondoil.co. Our symbol is BOIL, easy to remember on the CSE. And we've got all kinds of customer videos and other testimonials on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. As a reminder, anyone who would like to ask a question, please type it in the Q&A box. Well, we have a few questions from the audience today here. So the first question is, we've observed recent progress on shipments being delivered based on commercial agreements in Israel and other markets. Could you perhaps elaborate on how these will affect recurring revenue growth and market penetration?
Absolutely. So I'll give you one example on our deal in Israel with an oil distributor called Fandango. They have 8,000 customers in the country of Israel that they're selling oil and oil treatment to. Some of them are mom and pop restaurants, some of them are medium-sized regional chains, and others are international global chains based in North America. And so he has been over the last 3 months starting to penetrate the market, demonstrating the product and impressing all of them. We have a very high customer take-up rate once we do demos. And now that we've just announced in the last month our deal in the United States with Oil Solutions Group based in Texas and Vital Hospitality in London, they will be doing more and more market penetration now, particularly in the American deal with highly recognized brands in America. And as we start getting more and more penetration and announcing these deals, it's going to be much easier to penetrate the market with even bigger chains as we expand our production. And while we're doing that, I have to emphasize, while we're doing these deals publicly with the restaurants, we are quietly doing demos with the longer sales cycle customers, meaning the big industrial companies, which are the ones that are really going to make our company a much bigger win.
Thanks, Robert. How easy is it for restaurants to make the transition to your product? Is there any equipment upgrade or investment that a restaurant needs to make in order to use your product?
So generally speaking, it's very easy to adapt, but our strategy is going to these distributors who are already in the oil treatment business. So for example, Oil Solutions, Fandango, and Vital are already treating oil and filtering oil for their customers. So what they're doing is they're adding the Beyond Oil product to their existing processes to make them much better and more effective. So it'll be relatively seamless.
Great. In terms of your market opportunity, I think it's a really big one. Can you just explain a little bit more in terms of the market opportunity for the food service and the industrial side?
Absolutely. So the food service it's unlimited. That we have some competitors out there, but none of them produce the outcomes that we do in terms of oil life and actually eradicating those toxins from the oil that I mentioned. So the food service is really unlimited. We have FDA approval, we have Health Canada approval, we're clear to sell in Europe and Israel. It's very easy to get regulatory approval and penetrate the market in these countries. But on the industrial side, the opportunity is even bigger because of their motivation, not only to save money, but they're hungry. They're really, in some cases, desperate to find legitimate ESG outcome solutions for their companies that they can report back to their boards and their shareholders. And so we are able, uniquely able to leverage all three of those prongs that we're providing these companies in order to penetrate the market. Not to mention the health side, which is very important overseas to a lot of these industrial companies.
Yeah, I know there was a report that went out recently by one of the professors in Israel. Can you discuss a little bit about that and some of the health benefits that he mentioned in the report?
Absolutely. So we put out a report in May from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem by one of the world's top chemists in food oil, who in fact has been a professor to a lot of the CTOs at these companies that we're looking into. And he basically did a comprehensive study of all of our claims that we're making about reducing the free fatty acids and the metals and the plastic molecules. And he validated and confirmed all of those claims we're making. And on top of that, went a step further and said, actually, Beyond Oil's process and its product has the ability to reduce some of these cancer-causing agents that are developed in the oil and the food over time. So we've obviously shared that report with a lot of these companies and these CTOs. It's not our report, it's his, under his letterhead. And we're pleased that he's validated it. And as we penetrate the market more and more, we'll be producing more and more data like this to confirm everything that we're saying and claiming.
That's great to hear.
Robert, there's a question here around the taste. So
Yes.
you described a little bit about how this works with the powder. Most of us on this call haven't had a chance to try the food after it's been fried. Maybe just talk a little bit about that to give people a taste.
Yeah, I'd love to. So first of all, I'd say go to our website. There are a lot of videos and photos of, you can see the French fries and stuff before and after, but just briefly, I can explain to you that the French fries, for example, are crispier and they're lighter. There's no greasy film and there's no oily, smoky aftertaste. So it makes the food taste more natural and crispy.
That sounds great. And I think sometimes we don't realize almost everything, especially eating out and those Uber Eats deliveries. A lot of it is just fried,
Yes.
oil and all of it. So
it is. Well, we're going to make that.
it
We know that's not going to change. People love fried food, but we're just going to make it healthier for them and cheaper for the companies producing the food.
makes sense to me.
Robert, in terms of the trial period for some of these restaurants, how long does it take for these restaurants to try a product? And
so it's up to them. I mean, some of these restaurants are dumping their oil every 2 days. Some of them are dumping them 5 or 7. So it's really up to them how long they want us to take it in order to impress them or not. So on average, a demo will go for 10 or 15 days. And some of them have wanted to do it again because the results were so good they didn't believe them and they want to try them in a different context. And so and then, you know, some of them are just frankly following other leads. Like in Israel, some restaurants are saying, well, so and so is using it, we're just going to trust him and we're going to use it, and there is no demo. So it just varies from case to case.
And Robert, when you're out, I know you're very involved and connected in making sure that the product gets out there. Really admire the connections you've been able to make for the company so far. What are some of the, I guess, challenges or the pain points in some of the conversations that you're having to date?
Yeah, I would say for the challenges, there have been a lot of competitive products out there that have made claims and they aren't that good, frankly. And so we've run into a lot of cases where they say, yeah, okay, we've heard this before, you know, didn't work as well. And I know, you know, that is the case. I mean, we've actually tried some of the competitive products ourselves, of course. So that's kind of been the main one. But you know, once we get in the door, all we need to do is say to them, we don't need you to buy this product. We don't need to sign anything. Just let us test the product in your own facility. And once they do that, everything changes because the results speak for themselves.
okay. Thanks, Robert, for that. Yeah, I guess in terms of, I know you mentioned at some of the hotels, you sign a agreement with Vital.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that market?
Yeah, so Vital is concerned with hygiene in a lot of these larger kitchens, hotels and airports and so on. And so when they heard about us, and they heard about us, I believe, through our deal in Israel, they were compelled because they're not only, you know, trying to make oil cleaner and healthier, they're trying to make kitchens cleaner and healthier. So a lot of where our hope is that a lot of these distributors that we've signed with and we're going to sign with are going to use our product as a means of expanding their own businesses. And we know that's starting to happen in Israel, and we're expecting it's going to happen with our deals in the US and in England.
Okay, great. Well, this concludes our question and answer session. Robert, do you have any last words before we leave the session today?
I would just say, go to our website and our YouTube page. We've got a lot of great videos that are actually fun to watch. They apply to people because everybody eats this food. And our team is working to create what we think has a very good shot at being one of the greatest microcap IPO stories in Canadian history.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank
All
you.
right. If anyone would like to connect with Robert, please reach out through their investor relations website or reach out to one of us, and we would be happy to connect you. Don't forget to add Boyle on the CSC to your watch list.
Thanks,
All right.
Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Nice to see
Thank
you.
you.